Sunny. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. So I'm here with Sunny Aggarwal, CEO and co-founder of Osmosis. I'm Ran, co-founder of Orderly Network. Do you want to just give us a quick intro about Osmosis?
Yeah, sure. So Osmosis is a DEX app chain. We're built using the Cosmos SDK. And so we, are focused on being an interchain DEX and allowing tokens from different ecosystems to all trade on one venue. So we've, have tokens from, I think over 100 blockchains at this point. Majority of them are from the Cosmos ecosystem, but also most major EVM chains, a lot of substrate-based chains, and a lot of Celestia ecosystem stuff. So yeah, we're just working on we're the DEX app chain.
Awesome. Yeah, I've actually tried the DEX before. It's one of the
Nice.
largest ecosystems in the Cosmos
Yeah.
greater ecosystem.
What was your experience
Great.
using it?
Oh, it was good. It's very smooth. Um, you use the Kepler wallet. I think it's like the whole experience is a lot smoother than I actually expected. Just being like a more EVM
Hmm.
maxi.
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
so let's get to it. First question. So what are the key developments in Osmosis are you most excited about, and how are you positioning Osmosis for the future of cross-chain DeFi?
Yeah. So some of the stuff that I'm pretty excited about right now is we've been doing a lot of work with account abstraction. So we have built a like native account abstraction system into the blockchain itself. So that way we can do a lot of the you know, new sorts of signature schemes and stuff using Face ID to sign transactions, one-click trading, all these sorts of new features that we are building, but natively built into the protocol. So I think there's a lot of like projects out there today that are working on like a account abstraction stuff, but usually they're working on like more infrastructure level stuff. And they don't really have a initial customer for most of these account abstraction things, right? But us as a DEX, as a user-facing consumer app itself, we are our own customer. And so, we are able to just build and design a lot of the account abstraction flows with a very particular, UX in mind and with a path to delivering that experience to the end user. So I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about now. The feature that we're starting with is this thing called one-click trading, which basically means that like every time you do a trade, you don't have to like re-pop open the wallet and like sign every single time. What it does is when you go onto any Web2 app, right, you sign in and then you make as many actions as you want. Sometimes you have to re-authenticate yourself. So like when you go on a centralized exchange, right, like I don't have to re-sign in every time I do a trade. If it detects any sort of suspicious activity, or if I'm trying to withdraw off of the centralized exchange, that's when they ask you to like re-authenticate, right? And so that's actually that's the feature that will be going live on Osmosis in the next few months. So if you're just trading, back and forth between Bitcoin and ETH, especially if you're using a ledger, that gets really annoying, right? So this makes it you'll be able to do that a lot easier. So that's just like the first use case of our account abstraction stack, and from there we'll be rolling out a bunch more as well. So that's I think one of the main things I'm most excited about. The other is, I've just been very focused on a lot of like Bitcoin L2s and stuff because, I've always been a Bitcoin maxi for a long time. And part of the reason I started working in Cosmos was, I wanted to build the application layer for Bitcoin. Uh, I saw that like Ethereum and stuff was like very ETH. I thought it was very cool, but I'm like, it's all focused around this ETH asset. I want to like build for Bitcoin. And so that's kind of why I started working on Cosmos. But then for the last few years, there just wasn't as much attention or activity or like degeneracy in the Bitcoin community. But then everything changed last year with like ordinals. And so now there's this whole new Bitcoin renaissance happening, where, the Bitcoin ecosystem is growing like crazy. And so I think that, so Osmosis, we're working on a couple of different products actually that will kind of like position us as like, uh, a DEX, a leading DEX in this new growing Bitcoin ecosystem.
Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. I think at both points, Face ID to sign trades will be really interesting. I don't think that's
Hmm.
been done. And yeah, also pretty excited about the Bitcoin ecosystem. There really needs to be a DEX that can allow, native Bitcoin swaps, right, in DeFi,
Yeah.
which doesn't, it's all wrapped assets as far as I can, I guess with the exception of Thorchain.
Yep.
And then like we're doing perps, right? And
Hmm.
we want native Bitcoin as collateral for perps,
Yeah.
which is also interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So regarding those products sounds really cool. In your last talk last year, you mentioned that Osmosis will launch concentrated liquidity that combines central limit order book CLOB with AMM. Can
Hmm.
you share more about these features and progress, how that's going to attract liquidity and such?
Yeah. So we did actually launch the contrary liquidity last year, and so that's been, a success. And like at this point, all you know, all of our top pools by volume have shifted over to contrary liquidity pools. So we did talk about last time, I think, how we were working on a design that like merged a CLOB into a contrary liquidity pool. Um, it turns out as we kind of like went down the iteration, we realized actually it doesn't make that much sense because of how fees work slightly differently on all of them. Where at, how a concentrated liquidity pool works is you charge fees on, you basically charge these like uh fees on every single trade, and but then on a order book, the makers typically, the market makers usually don't get a fee from the trader. They actually put that in as the spread, right? So, usually when you're placing a limit order, you get exactly at the limit order. And so we could have actually done our CLOB on top of contrary liquidity, but the UX that market makers want is it would need to be on top of a zero fee contrary liquidity pool. And
Yep.
then we're like, wait, but then the contrary liquidity part doesn't really make sense, because why is anyone LPing in this thing with zero fees? So, you know, after we actually went down that exercise, we did a lot of development, and we're like, wait a second, let's not even build these as one pool anymore. Let's just separate them as different pools. Because no matter what, in contrary liquidity, we already need multiple pool types because we have different spread factors, different fee tiers. And so, what we've done is basically we're creating a new pool that's just our CLOB pool. So those are actually also in development, right? Well, actually under audit right now. And so those should be, we'll have our order books going live pretty soon, working on a limit order flow in our front end. And then working with some market makers who, want to be able, a lot of market makers want to be able to market make on a CLOB rather than on contrary liquidity. And so that this will enable them to do that.
Okay, cool, great. But for spot only, right? Currently.
Hmm. Yes, this is for spot. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Um, and
Although,
in
in
terms of,
theory, people
yeah.
there is like a hooks framework as well,
Hmm.
where people can add hooks, and there are ways that you can actually like use hooks on top of a spot order book to create other systems, like potentially like perpetuals, dexes, and stuff on top of that.
Okay, interesting. And back to kind of the previous, when you talked about the Bitcoin ecosystem and then, the whole Cosmos and Osmosis, it's all about interoperability, right? Across different
Hmm.
chains, connecting all the chains. What are your thoughts generally around interoperability? So across liquidity across different chains, ETH and others. as we become this omni-chain. Things are getting more and more omni-chain, right? As far as I
Hmm.
can tell, and
Yeah.
also just interoperability between apps within the Cosmos ecosystem. How do you think
Hmm.
about interoperability in general and how Osmosis plays in?
Yeah, so I mean, Osmosis, there's been, quite a bit of growth of interoperability in the ecosystem. Now, like more and more products do like DeFi actions cross-chain within the Cosmos ecosystem. Like, you have protocols like Umi and Nolus, which are two like lending protocols on their own app chains, but then they like trigger liquidations via Osmosis using like cross-chain swaps, uh, and they also use Osmosis as an Oracle source for some of their assets on their DEX. So we've seen a growth in like there's this really good DAO framework in Cosmos called DAO.
Mm.
And one of the nice things about that is it actually lets you um, do actions on multiple chains. So allows DAOs to trigger actions on other chains. And this is like a big deal because what happens is we have like DAOs on uh, you know, Neutron, for example, which is one of the Cosmos chains, but then they wanted to like put liquidity on Osmosis. So they're able to do that via this DAO framework. So I think there's a lot of like, you know, I've said this for a long time, but it's still actually really the case where like the Cosmos ecosystem is still probably the only place where interoperability has gone beyond simple token transfers, right? Like in the EVM world, like it's like there's not really a way for a DAO on Arbitrum to, you know, buy an NFT on mainnet Ethereum, right? It's just like you kind of have to like deploy these like multi-sigs in different places and stuff like that. So um I think what's happening now is you have a lot of people taking a lot of the IBC standards that have been built and then expanding them to the EVM world. And so we'll see, hopefully we'll be able to have that level of interoperability uh, in the EVM world as well. But yeah, so that's kind of the state of interoperability right now in Cosmos.
So speaking of IBC, as you mentioned, what are some of the major advancements in IBC?
Mhm.
Improving cross-chain UX, new use cases, just going on to what you just said.
Yeah. So a couple of the big things that have happened over the sort of the last year was one, like I mentioned, an expansion of IBC to frameworks beyond the Cosmos SDK. So we've seen in production like Substrate IBC go live. It's like, there's live IBC between Polkadot and like Osmosis, for example.
Mm.
Then we also have like there's a teams like Union building it for like Ethereum. You have Composable. They're working on an IBC implementation for Solana right now. So we're really starting to see IBC like grow beyond just the Cosmos SDK at this point. Then another big change that has happened is uh like I said, the expansion, this idea of cross-chain, uh, we call them IBC hooks, which basically
Mm.
allows you to uh, have a contract on one chain call a contract on another chain. And that's actually, a lot of this like, oh, DAO framework calling executing things on other chains. That all came a lot of that via this like cross-chain swaps hook. Or we can make it so like, with that, there's like a site called ibc.fun powered by this team called Skip, where they basically do cross-chain swaps. So you can have a token on one chain, you say, oh, I want this token on a different chain, but like just make a single transaction. And what it does is it will like do the IBC to Osmosis, swap to whatever token they want, IBC, and maybe that's a multi-hop IBC. So you might be doing a transaction on like five different chains, but it all just gets done as a single transaction on the originating chain, and the result ends up there on the destination chain. You don't have to make transactions on every intermediary chain. So that's been another big change that has happened. Or like I guess like maybe a year ago that already existed, but we hadn't seen it like in production, like or like products built around it. But now you have you do have that today with like Squid Router and IBC.Fun and stuff like that. Um, and then the last thing is a lot of safety controls. We think a lot about security and safety, and so one of the things that we our team pushed pretty heavily in the Cosmos ecosystem is this idea of rate limits. So what that means is that like at the IBC channel level, you can like governance of chains can say like, hey, if like more than 25% of this like asset is like outflowing in a 24-hour period, like pull a circuit breaker because maybe there's a hack going on or something like that, right? And this is like very important for like security purposes. And so we built that originally for Osmosis, but now that's been adopted on more Cosmos chains like Stride and even the Cosmos Hub, and I think more and more chains are starting to adopt that as well. So yeah, those are some of the new sorts of more generalizability, um, more security function features, and then expansion to more ecosystems.
Got it. That's it's quite interesting. I remember using the cross-chain swaps, um, and it's very seamless. Yeah. Like you mentioned a Squid router. So is that the one made by the Axelar guys?
It was yeah, it's a spin-off, it's a
A
spin-out of the
spin-off.
Axelar
That's right.
team. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So
So a lot of
like
those swaps, like if you ever like if you ever transfer to like the DYDX chain, for example, right? That's usually using Squid Router and it's doing those swaps on Osmosis.
got it. I see. So that's within the Cosmos ecosystem, right? But what about outside of it? Like the interoperability between, so I mean, Axelar has um,
Mhm.
integrations with many different chains, right? Like,
Yep.
do they play a role in like the cross-chain aspect?
Yeah, so I mean, Axelar is, I would say, our like primary bridge partner for
Okay.
beyond
Yep.
IBC, Cosmos chains. Right now, we use them for connecting to most of the EVM chains. But there's a lot of other bridges we're working with as well. We have Wormhole on Osmosis. There's Hyperlane. There's this chain called Router Protocol, and then there's a Bitcoin bridge we're working with called Nomic. And so, we actually there's an interesting governance proposal that will be coming out this week that we're doing with Nomic. I'm personally really excited about because it's going to be like one of the, if passed by both chain governance systems, it would probably be one of the most like important DAO to DAO deals in crypto because it creates a new business model for bridges altogether. So I'm pretty excited for that governance proposal.
Mm, I see. And back to the Bitcoin blockchain part, right? Can you share some alpha on how that's going to Cosmos, Osmosis would be kind of the app layer for
Yeah.
Bitcoin, or the DDEX for
Mhm.
Bitcoin. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things we're doing, right? So one is, I mean, with Nomic making it, we'll be making it very easy for you to swap from like BTC to ETH or to Sol on Solana, like being that like cross ecosystem liquidity spot similar to like the
Mm,
what Thorchain does. um
yeah.
but on top of that, we're also working on providing like liquidity fungification across like a number of different Bitcoin L2s. So
Mm,
similar to how you have like projects like Stargate or Cross doing this for ETH across a number of ETH L2s, where we will be able where we have some products in the works where like if you have BTC on stacks, but you want to send it to BTC to Botanics, without having to go back to mainnet Ethereum, sorry, mainnet Bitcoin, slow and expensive. We have like liquidity built up of a number of different flavors of Bitcoin, and you'll be able to swap quickly through Osmosis.
mm. That's exciting. That's very interesting. Yeah, that's I think people need something like that for sure. There's demand. And okay, so now going back to the UX, right? Because I mean, for you got like
Mhm,
you mentioned in the very beginning, it's the interoperability piece, like with Bitcoin, and then the UX improvements. So that
mhm,
stuff is very interesting. But what about just in the you mentioned, the account abstraction piece, but what about
mhm.
in the other aspects of the UX that traders
Mm.
will experience? How have you
Yeah.
optimized, like onboarding, asset transfer,
Mm.
wallet management, any things like that
Yeah,
for them?
so some of the other big chain things that we're adding right now, just like, you know, we are supporting deposit and withdrawals from multiple chains. So today, like we own, you have to, we only support deposits of ETH from mainnet Ethereum. We only support
Mm,
deposits of USDC from, like Noble chain. But what
right.
we'll be doing now is like, oh, you can deposit ETH from Ethereum, but also from Polygon and Base and Arbitrum and a number of different L2s. And so that there's some stuff needed on the chain side to treat these as fungible with each other, but with proper safety controls. Um,
Mm,
but also a lot of UX flows of like, we kind of Osmosis kind of has to become sort of a multi-chain wallet because we need to effectively
mm.
like detect, hey, where are your assets and what can you import? How make it very fast and easy to deposit those into Osmosis. So that's that deposit withdrawal workflow is changing. Uh, as I mentioned, we're launching the order books, but so along with that, we're having like a limit order flow that's being built in, but trying to figure out how do we make limit orders, very very easy to digest for, you know, our target has always been more like retail users. We're going after the Coinbase user
Hmm.
base rather than like the, you know, uh, pro user base or something, right? So yeah, trying to make these things a lot easier. Um, and then finally integrating more with like some more fiat on ramps. So and baking the fiat on ramp experience more natively into the website where someone, if the goal is to go after the Coinbase user base, we need to make it so someone can come in with no crypto and like start by using Osmosis. They don't have to start by using you know, a centralized exchange.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Totally agree. So speaking of order books, that's a more, I would say, professional traders,
Mhm.
um, kind of a trading infrastructure, and uh, there's more concerns with privacy front running, especially on chain. So, what are any approaches to um, making order books more friendly for traders?
Yeah. So, uh, well, actually, I would argue that order books are probably better for front running because, if you're placing limit orders, it's hard to get, you can't really get to front run in the same way, uh, compared to a market order. But, yes, there's a lot of, there are work on like a lot of privacy stuff, especially when it comes to like, things like stop orders, right? You do care about privacy there because you don't want
Yeah.
someone, otherwise, if everything's public, people just stop loss hunt basically, which is not cool. So yeah, we are there's some solutions that we have in the works, some probably that are shorter term feasible, like we're working on adding, SGX capabilities to the Osmosis blockchain so that every validator has an SGX built into their like is running an SGX node. We're doing this for a number of different reasons. One is for some of the privacy work. There's also some pretty exciting stuff that we're doing where how you can do like decentralized front ends, but like trustless decentralized front ends using SGXs. Yeah, so using that, but then later we'll be shifting to like more MPC based solutions. Like so it's funny actually, Osmosis started uh you know, we started as this like privacy project. We were working on mempool privacy stuff, and then
Mm.
so people can't front run. And then, you know, we kind of while we were developing that, we were like, okay, well, this is a feature, not a product. What's the product here? And so then we kind of like ended up pivoting to building a DEX, and then the goal is to go add that mempool privacy functionality into the DEX. So, privacy is always at like the root of our, it for the co-founders, this is like privacy is like the MO of crypto. Like what is the point of crypto is to build private systems. Like, we have this tagline which is like privacy for the individual, transparency for the system. And I think that's like the fun. If you had to boil down the purpose of DeFi, I think that's what it really comes down to. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely working on some of bringing some of or like launching some of those features as well.
Yep, that sounds great. And looking towards the futures, there's a lot of new tech that comes out. There's AI, right?
Mhm.
Just looking down your roadmap, like what do you think? Can you just tell us what lies in the future, what you're thinking about, which tech that you want to implement, blockchain or non-blockchain, to push forward the vision of Osmosis and Cosmos?
Yeah. I think for us, like I said, I think the pri I, you know, in we are like, okay, what are our main themes for the year, right? And I think our three main themes right now are Bitcoin, privacy, and smart accounts. That's our term, what we use for, account abstractions is a weird technical term. It's, so we call these smart accounts. But yeah, so it's like, how do we make custody of crypto safer and easier to understand? No more of these, I think wallet browser extensions are this like legacy thing that will go away over time. So improving custody, improving privacy, and then bringing DeFi to Bitcoin. So I think that's where our focus is. I know a lot of people like to chase narratives. There's like AI stuff, there's modularity, there's all this kind of stuff. But I think for us, we're just kind of very focused on like, okay, these are the core three like why we're in crypto. And then obviously from there, just like, okay, you build, good trading products that people want to trade with.
Got it. Okay, I think we're running out of time, but final question.
Mhm.
How do people get involved with Osmosis? Developers, traders, users, how do
Yeah.
they get involved? Yeah.
So you can go to if you're a trader or a user, you can go to our site, osmosis.zone. You will need to download a wallet to use it. I recommend either Kepler or Leap. Both of them are great. And you can get started with using. Also, if you go on osmosis.zone, if you scroll down, that we have links to our developer docs. We use a smart contracting framework called Cosmos. It's a Rust-based smart contracting framework, but it allows you to, we develop applications that plug in to the Osmosis DEX, make use of our liquidity, and we have by daily active user or actually sorry, but by monthly active users, Osmosis is the fifth largest DEX by monthly active users. So we have a very large user base. And so, if you're interested in building DeFi applications and like getting them to market, getting them in the hands of a lot of users quickly, Osmosis is a great place to do that. So yeah, definitely reach out to us. Our Twitter is at Osmosis Zone, also linked on our website.
Okay, awesome. It's great chatting with you, Sunny.
Awesome. Thanks, Ren.
Thank you.